theyeshiva.net.
It's page 50. On top it says Acharei, Perek Beis. V'hinei klal kol ha'Torah mitzvahs hem gimel madregas. The klal of all Torah and mitzvahs, if you summarize it into klalim, into major principles, trends, you can categorize it into three trends. Yiddishkeit, all of Torah and mitzvahs can be categorized or divided into three dynamics. Shehem Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah. There's the element of Yiddishkeit that's represented by Torah. There's the element of Tefillah, and there's the element of Tzedakah. That's the klal of Kol HaTorah Mitzvahs. It's the three pathways of Yiddishkeit. Essentially, it's Kiddetnan. It's like the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos. Shimon HaTzadik teaches in the beginning of Perek Aleph of Avos, Al shloisha dvarim ha'olam oimed, al ha'Torah, al avodah, al gemilas chasad. He says the world stands, the universe stands on three things. Torah, avodah, gemilas chasad. But there he speaks about the universe stands on it. Here he says the reason the olam is oimed on it because that's the klal of Kol HaTorah mitzvahs. This is these three elements sum up the three categories that encompass all of Yiddishkeit. And that is why the world stands on these things, or the other way around, it works both ways. The world stands on these three things, and therefore this is the klal of Torah and mitzvahs. Ki, tefillah hi b'mekayim avodas hakarbanos, ugmilas chsadim haynu tzedakah. Don't get confused, it says avodah, not tefillah. It says avodah, what he means by avodah is, remember, Shimon HaTzadik was a Kohen Gadol in the second Beis HaMikdash. So when he spoke about avodah, what did he mean avodah? He meant avodas hakarbanos. What is avodas hakarbanos? Chazal say, tefillah, we say every morning on a shalma forim svaseinu. Let our lips substitute for the bulls, for the cows. Tefillah is b'makam karbanos tiknum. Tefillah is keneged timidin tiknum. So the idea of the carbon is the essence of tefillah, pre-chorban or post-chorban, but that's the avodah. And gemilas chasadim is the concept of tzedakah. Giving, generosity, whatever form of tzedakah takes on, whether it's a loan, whether it's helping somebody. The Rambam famously says in Hilchos, in his halachos of tzedakah, Hilchos Matnas Aniyim, that the greatest form of tzedakah is not helping the person who's destitute. A person who's destined to go to destitution, to lift them up, to be able to provide them with a job so that they shouldn't need tzedakah. That's the greatest form of tzedakah, which psychologically and emotionally also means that. There's a form of tzedakah, somebody's in the dumps, somebody's lost, and you schlep them out. That's obvious tzedakah. But there's a much deeper form of tzedakah. When they're about to end up there, or they're going in that direction, to help them not get there. That's a much more subtle form of tzedakah because it doesn't look like you're doing it, because you're helping them get a job. Tzedakah, I'm giving the tzedakah here, I'm not giving the tzedakah. I'm helping the person help themselves, but that's a much deeper form of help. Helping people help themselves is a much greater help for them than helping them. Because helping them turns them into recipients. Helping them help themselves turns them into creators, co-creators in life, which is essential to human dignity. So that's why gemilas chsadim and tzedakah are very interchangeable, because gemilas chsadim is actually the greatest form of tzedakah. You assist them, you lend them, you're helping them rehabilitate their own ability to be able to stand on their own feet.
If a person a fish, you feed him a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Right. Yes. You want to say it again?
Give a person a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Right.
Ancient Chinese proverb.
I thought you said it.
He's an ancient Chinaman.
There's an interesting halacha, and that is when you give. It's an interesting halacha in Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Tzedakah. When you give a poor man tzedakah, you have to also give him a little more that he should be able to give tzedakah. You have to give him a little more that the poor man should be able to give tzedakah. There's the minimum shiurim of tzedakah, right? In the cities, the Gemara and Baba Basra, they used to have the tamchois, but the gaboy tzedakah. So you give the ani a little more money that he should be able to give tzedakah. L'chayda, at first glance, it seems like a mockery. Instead of giving him the money to be able to give tzedakah, give directly the tzedakah. Man, it's anyway not his money, right? So what do you have to give it direct? Yeah. They say the Maisa, there was a Yid who borrowed money from somebody. And and he didn't have, and he lost the money, whatever, so he borrowed from somebody else. I'll call upon him, and as I went on and on, became malvas and loivas, and finally everybody was attacking him from all sides. So he met the people. He said, "Why don't you guys deal with each other? Get me out of the picture. What do you need the ani? You're giving him money to give tzedakah, to give the tzedakah directly." The pshat, of course, is there's a very profound idea here. Tzedakah is to be able to provide a person with his or her needs. Part of the need of a person is to be able to give. If a person doesn't have the ability to give, they lose their dignity. Even if they have all their needs. Part of the need is to be a human being, to be B'Tselem Elokim. To be a human being means to be able to give. So part of tzedakah is not only giving him money so he should have food, he should have shoes, he should have where to live, etc. But also the ability to be able to feel that he can give something. Even though that itself is a gift. So that's the concept, the Maila, the Rambam explains the concept of Gemilas Chasodim over tzedakah. I'll tell you a Geschmacka Maisa that I heard from the Bala Maisa. I was once traveling on an airplane to South Carolina for a lecture. So who's sitting near me? A man named Yosef Telushkin. He was a famous author and so forth. His Zayda was a Yid named Reb Nissen Telushkin, who lived in Boropark. He was a big Rav. He wrote a sefer called Taras Mayim. He was one of the big experts in America on mikvahs. That was his Zayda. His father's name was Reb Shloime Telushkin, who was an accountant. So he was telling me about his family, his father. This is many years ago. During the flight, so he tells me his father was his Zayda was a big Rav. His father, he said, was a hard-working man who got up every day. He was an accountant. And he did it for like 60 years. You know, one of these people who keeps the same job, doesn't look right, doesn't look left, supports his family honestly, pays taxes. Everybody knows what that word means? And just lives, you know, a fine, decent, innocent life. One of his accounts that he dealt with was the secretariat of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Okay, it was one of his accounts. As an accountant, he would do their accounting for them. So I heard this from him. He said it was 1985 or 1986. His father had a stroke. It was horrible. He was in the hospital. It was very serious. It was a serious stroke. He's sitting there in the hospital with his father. There's a call in the room. He tells me, he picks up the phone. He says, hello. The man introduces himself, Rabbi Yehuda Krinsky, who was one of the secretaries of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, the Rebbe, at the end of the month, would sometimes go through the bills, see what's going on. He was looking at all the bills, the Rebbe, and he calls Rabbi Krinsky. He says, there's a discrepancy here. There's something off. So Krinsky says, okay, you know, Rebbe says, why don't you call Shloime Telushkin and ask him. Ask him. So that's why I'm calling. So Joe Telushkin says, I tell Rabbi Krinsky, I don't understand. The Rebbe knows that my father had a stroke. We notified right away. We asked for a bracha. He says, Rabbi Krinsky says, I know the Rebbe knows. I'm the one who told him. I'm the one who told him a few days ago. So he says, so why didn't you tell the Rebbe? The man is a stroke patient. You find somebody else. He said, I wasn't going to tell that to the Rebbe. He told me to call Shloime Telushkin. I'm calling Shloime Telushkin. He says, the Rebbe forgot he had a stroke. He said, I doubt he forgot. He said to ask him, why don't you ask your father? So he went over to the bed. He gave him the whole cheshboinus or whatever. He brought it over. I think it was one of the Brooklyn hospitals. Whatever, he had the cheshboinus. So he went over to his father. And he said that the Rebbe was just going through the account. He said there's a discrepancy here. And the Rebbe said, ask Shloime Telushkin. He'll let him figure it out. So he says, my father, I saw the light come into his eyes. And he starts looking. And he said it was a very simple issue. It wasn't a complicated issue. And he figured it out. And my father told me he could barely speak. He had a slur. But he told me the answer and it was resolved. He said, in the beginning, I was very, very unimpressed with the Rebbe. To go to a stroke victim, a patient, And then I realized what happened. He says, my father worked every day of his life. The emotional sense of hopelessness, for the first time in his life, he can't get up, he can't work, he can't produce anything. He would have gone into a depression. He said, I saw it. Suddenly he felt useful. Suddenly he felt that what he's good at could be expressed, could be maximized. And then I realized at that moment the tremendous thoughtfulness and love that he had for my father, to be able to think what he needs at that moment, to be able to figure out the Acharei, to make him feel needed. He said it transformed the future of his father. It already gave him a new lease on life, and it was so simple he knew he'll be able to figure it out. It was a very simple. It was a discrepancy, but it was not a complicated mistake. So there are two types of tzedakah. There's tzedakah, you're needy, I make you feel needy, and I help you. There are people who are very good at that. They have good hearts, but you have to feel needy. There's a much deeper form of tzedakah, and that is, I make you feel that you don't need me. That's real Gemilas Chesadim. Not I make you feel you don't even need me. I'm like, okay, I happen to be here. You know what I mean? It's about you, it's not about me. In other words, you give the person the ability to help themselves, to rehabilitate themselves. That's generally an elaboration of what the Rambam says about these concepts. So, Nachzal in Yaneinu. So you have the three categories of Yiddishkeit: Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chesadim, what he calls here Torah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah. So Tefillah is Karbanos, and Gemilas Chesadim is Tzedakah. Now, when you speak about these three things, and he says this is the Klal HaTorah VaMitzvahs, that's not a small statement. This is why we say, as he says elsewhere, Elikei Avraham, Elikei Yitzchak, Elikei Yaakov. Which here there's a natural question. There's no three gods, there's one God. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had different gods. They all worship the same God. That was the whole idea of monotheism. There's no God for India and one God for China. So you have to say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elikei Avraham, v'Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Same Elikei. The pshat, of course, is that the way God is one, but the way people experience Hashem and the way people connect to Hashem must work through their own soul, through their own identity. God is absolute infinity. Avraham identified, he found his path to Hashem through chesed, through tzedakah, through Gemilas Chesadim. Yitzchak through avodah, through karbanos. Yaakov through the Kav HaTorah. So Elikei Avraham, Elikei Yitzchak, Elikei Yaakov, it was the way they discovered their own relationship with Hashem, the way they experienced Hashem in their life. And it wasn't the same. It's three experiences of Elikos, even though it's one Hashem. And they couldn't rely on the other one. Usually, when you have a father like Avraham Avinu, you don't have to have your own God. You rely on your father's God. You have a Zayda and a father like Avraham and Yitzchak, you see it all the time. You ask somebody, who are you? Oh, my Tata. Who are you? My Zayda, my Alta Zayda. No. Elikei Avraham. Yitzchak didn't come and say, my father already had a God, I don't need a God. It happens very often. People's fathers had a God, they don't have. Their father had, and they try to rely on it. It's like living off your father's credit cards. Doesn't work that way. Elikei Avraham has to be Elikei Yitzchak. Yitzchak had to have his own God. Elikei Yaakov. You can't say my Zayda and my father are inspired people. You have to find your own Elikim. So that's why you say it three times. And therefore, you have here the klal of kol ha-Torah v'mitzvos. He says, so keneged gimel dvarim elu. But these three things go one step deeper. Ksiv, parallel to these three things, the pasuk says, pasuk in Yeshaya, also quoted at the end of Pirkei Avos. So here you have an interesting thing. The beginning of Pirkei Avos is al shlosh dvarim olam oimen. The end of Pirkei Avos is kol ma shebara kadosh baruch hu b'olam le'braya l'chvoida, which he touched and covered al Torah. Shenema v'lechvoidi brosiv yitzartiv afasisiv. So the beginning of Pirkei Avos is the end reflect each other. Brosiv shehei machshava dibur ma'isa. Brosiv yitzartiv afasisiv is not just three synonyms, not just three adjectives to describe. I created it, I formed it, and I also made it. What's the difference? You could have just said, I created it, I made it, I formed it. No, it's three stages in the cosmos, three stages in the developmental evolution of the cosmos. Machshava, dibur ha'maisa. Thought, verbal articulation and then speech, and then action. Barasiv is P'chinas Machshava. Why? Shei P'chinas Bria Yesh Me'ayin. Machshava is the initial glimmer of consciousness. Yesh Me'ayin, it's not a development. Dibur takes the Machshava and gives it concrete form. You have a thought, and then you think how to say it, how to write it, how to communicate it. Dibur has to follow Machshava. Dibur is the tzura of the Machshava. So Machshava is the Bria, it's like the creation, the Yesh Me'ayin. V'hi neged ha-tefillah she'i avodah shebelev. And that corresponds to which aspect of Yiddishkeit? Tefillah. Why? The Gemara says in Masechta Tainus, Ola avdoi b'chol levavchem, ezu hi avodah shebelev. Which is the avodah in the heart? Zu tefillah. Zu ha-kavana b'machshava b're'usa d'liba. All of tefillah is about machshava. That's the primary raison d'etre of tefillah. It's about a mindset. It's mindfulness, it's thought, it's ru'usa d'liba, which means the desire of the heart. K'maimir, as Chazal famously say, tefillah b'loi kavana, k'guv b'loi neshama. Tefillah without mindfulness is a body that's lifeless. You can have a corpse, everything is there, but there's nothing there, it's dead. What do you mean? What about dibur at tefillah? There's a mitzvah that tefillah should be b'dibur. Emes, he says, hurak she'yah hakol ma'ir kavana. The function of verbal articulation of tefillah is only because koil ma'ir hakavana. The voice, the sound resonates and triggers a mindful state. But the essence of tefillah is not dibur. The essence of tefillah is not words. The essence of tefillah is kavana. L'cheini b'makam ha-karbonis. That's the relationship to karbonis. Why? Avodas ha-karbonis ha'isatluya b'kahana b'uvdu b'rusid li b'kniska b'zoyar. The Zoyar says the main avodah of karbonis was the kavana of the koyanim. We don't look at it that way. We look at the karbonas, you know what it looked like? You ever went to a shlachtois? Right? Still not a lot of kavana over there. Not a lot of mindfulness there. Yeah? But it says in Zohar, it was totally, only koyanim could do it. It was all about uvda b'rusadl, the avodah was the ratzon alev. That's why you see a peladika thing with karbonas. The thought of the koyan makes it or breaks it. It's a mod mazach. Pigel. What's the pigel? A koyan is with a vessel and he's accepting the blood, or he's walking to the mizbeach, or he's sprinkling the blood, and he has a thought. What's the thought? The thought is, this is going to be a good rib steak, and we're having a barbecue for my mother's 70th birthday. Not tonight, but tomorrow night. I think I'm going to save a piece of the rib steak for the barbecue. The only problem is it's tomorrow night, and tomorrow night is already after the Zman. The whole carbon is puzzle. It's all over. It's disqualified. But that's why. Because the whole inyan of carbon is machshava, ru'usa d'liba. Alpi pnimiyus, it's about elevating the animal soul. And that requires a lot of kavanah. Keniska b'zoyah. So that's why the whole inyan of dibur is kol ma'ir kavanah. Now here, he's saying it in the oisius of Teres HaNister, of Teres HaChassidus. It's interesting that this is reflected almost verbatim in the world of halach and the world of nigla. One of the most classic works on the Rambam is Chidushi Rabbeinu Chaim Halevi ala Rambam, which are the Chidushim of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Reb Chaim Brisk, Reb Chaim of Brisk, Reb Chaim Brisker. So the opening of the Sefer, his first shtickle is on Rambam Hilchis Yisodei HaTorah. His second shtickle, I believe, is on Rambam Hilchis Tefillah. And he asks there a major question on the Rambam. In Rambam, there's two halachas in Hilchis Tefillah. I think one is Perik Dal, one is Perik Yud. The Rambam says that there are things that are ma'akev tefillah. Without them, it's not tefillah. One of the things the Rambam says is ma'akev tefillah, and he says eina tefillah. Without it, it's not tefillah. Is kavanas halev. If a person has no kavanas halev, those are his words. It's not a tefillah. As Reb Chaim, the same Rambam Hilchis Tefillah, the Rambam says a little later that if a person is davening, tefillah means Shemona Esrei in the Rambam. A person is davening and he doesn't have kavanah, so birchas ava is the first bracha he has to repeat. All the other brachas, he should have kavanah, but if he didn't, it's fine. The Rambam himself said, without kavanah salev ain't a tefillah. So Reb Chaim says, v'nireh the trei gavni kavanah ike b'tefillah. He says, it's a brisk word, but it's really a very spiritual word. He says there's two types of kavanah in tefillah. One is the kavanah of Pirush HaMilos. Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu atel chayne ladam das. Just the kavana, the words you're saying. Hameir la'aretz v'ladorim Allah berachamim pinois tzvav kedoshim. Anybody knows what that means? Pinois tzvav kedoshim. We're only saying it for 45 years, right? How would you know what it means? Lenny, you know what pinois tzvav kedoshim means?
I don't know, holy angels.
No, pinois doesn't mean holy. Okay, you could use an English siddur. So what, the corners of his angels are holy, and the middle of the angels are not holy? Only the corners? Because the hat's the corner of the hat. Okay, stop. This is just homework. So this Pirush Hamilis of davening, Kavana, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, right? Sim Shalom, whatever. Moedem Anachnu Lach. Says the Rambam, you need to have Pirush Hamilis. If you don't, you're Yaitze davening. Besides others, you have to say again. Just like Shema, if you didn't have Kavana. There's certain psukim, certain things you have to have Kavana of Pirush Hamilis. He says that's one din. The second Kavana the Rambam is talking about is not Pirush Hamilis. It's a different Kavana. What is it? It's the mindful awareness that I'm actually talking to Hashem. I'm in a conversation and not even talking. It's the mindful awareness that I'm in a state where I'm standing in front of my Creator and I'm conversing. I'm in a relationship. Says Reb Chaim, without that, you're not missing a detail of tefillah. You're not even missing a t'nai of tefillah. It's not like a t'nai of tefillah. To quote him, there's no chefts of tefillah. What do we mean there's no chefts of tefillah? There's no concept of davening. What is davening? What's the definition of the word davening? Saying words? That's not davening. That's saying words. What is davening? Davening is the mindful state, the conscious state that you're in a relationship. That's the essence of tefillah. The mindful state that right now you're in a different zone, you're in a different space, you're going into a deeper zone, into your soul's relationship with God. He said that's not a pesach condition in tefillah, t'nai in tefillah. That is the definition of it. Without that, what makes it tefillah? So standing for 32 minutes and just doing the whole siddur Baal Peh, from the brachas until after Avinu Malkeinu, because you don't realize that it's not Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So you go through the whole thing, even if you do Slichus Liyom Sheni V'Chamishi and all the Kriyas HaTorahs of Chalamayit, because you know the whole siddur Baal Peh. So he may say every word, and if he has a good Yerushalmi Havara, Bitu, he could do it in 12 and a half minutes. MS. It's nothing to do with tefillah. Why? It's words of davening. No, if I train a parrot to say words, you're going to say it's tefillah. That's not tefillah. The chefts of tefillah is there's a relationship. That's all about kavanas halev. It's all about kavanas halev. That's already not a t'nai in tefillah. That is tefillah. Then there's the t'nai pirush hamilis. That's together. So you see here, the Alter Rebbe is saying, the Balatanya is saying, Aydis Dibur, he says that's just to be ma'ir to the kavana. So therefore, the etzem nekud of tefillah is always machshava. It's intent. It's the inner state of where you are, where your mind is at the moment. V'hainu shetia kavanasei o machshavtoi dvuke b'Hashem. Now this is not easy. That his kavanah and his machshava should be davuk. It should be cleaved. It should be connected. It should be one with God. Now, how do you even do that? What, you take glue, you take scotch tape. How do you make your kavanah and your machshava dvuka b'Hashem? Nobody teaches this. How do you take your machshava and you make it dvuka b'Hashem? You take crazy glue. Your kavanah is dvuka b'Hashem. And he explains, see, kavanah machshava dvuka b'Hashem is not he's saying words. It's not doing something. It's all about an inner state of where your mind is, where your consciousness is. That means the person has to be able to tell himself, right now, what's the greatest obstacle to this? What do you think is the greatest obstacle to this? What would you say?
Ego, person's ego. A person's ego.
Machshava ego. And perhaps,
distractions.
to some, distractions, of course. And perhaps the greatest obstacle, I would think, especially today's day, is that the person thinks he's not davuk b'Hashem. So what am I going to fool myself?
Separation.
I'm not. I'm completely separated. In fact, I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what you're talking about. What do I have with this? So the first step in everything of kavanaseh machshavtei dvuka b'Hashem is that the person should stop thinking the exact opposite, that he's not Davuk Basha. In other words, the person has to be able to allow himself to be able to tell himself that right now he's capable of an experience of complete intimacy. Dveikus means intimacy, complete oneness with God. That's me, this guy who last night, I know who he is. From last night, from yesterday, from a day ago, from 20 years ago, besides what everybody told him about himself. This guy right now is capable of having dveikus b'Hashem in his kavan and his machshava. And it's all an internal experience. That means that I'm capable right now that there's nothing else going on in my life besides the fact that I'm completely one with God. That is the truth of who I am right now at this moment. While you're doing it, there are going to be thoughts coming into you and say, Vemen narstop is the chashaygets. Right? Who you fooling? You know who you are. Ich meine, ich dir. So the person, so that thought itself, you have to tell that thought, okay, welcome, but that thought doesn't define or take away or destroy and obliterate a deeper truth, and that is this moment is a Yid once came to the Chayz of Lublin, and he said that he has machshava zaras during davening. When he davens, he has alien thoughts. So the Chayz of Lublin said, no, that's not the problem. The problem is, by you, the tefillah is a machshava zara. You have thoughts. The davening is the alien thought. It's like the davening gets, like they have a shul. Instead of asur, what is it, asur l'daber b'shas ha-tefillah, they have a sign, asur l'spalel b'shas ha-dibur. You're not supposed to daven when you talk. Yeah. The davening is the machshava zara. Machshava zara is already a madrega. Machshava zara means you're in a relationship, you're davening, and suddenly, boom, a Scud missile comes into your mind. That's a machshava zara. The whole davening is a machshava. So it's a chnisht angeheben. It's not he has machshava zaras. The davening is zara, the machshavas. So there's already a yisoid there that he could say to himself that there is a component of his eye that's capable of complete mindful oneness with God, with Ein Sof, with infinity. Now when other machshavas come in, he has the ability to be able to put those machshavas in context and not allow them to undermine the fact that it doesn't take away from his reality being in complete oneness. And not allowing that machshava to destroy everything and saying that the dveikus is gone. Very many people have a difficulty even believing and accepting that this is capable. This is possible. But this is the truth. When a person goes into that state of mind, there is intimacy with God. So he says, Liyos merkave lav yisbarach. To become a chariot for him. What does it mean, a chariot? It's an interesting expression, a merkava. Merkava is, today you would use a car as an example. Then they didn't have cars. They had chariots, a wagon, a horse. What's supposed to be a chariot, Elav Yisbarach? It's a vehicle. It's a very, very interesting word. It comes from the Medrash, Ha'avas Heinin HaMerkava. Merkava. There's no mitzias. You come into your car, and you put on the motor. The car asks you, where do you want to go? Right? Or Waze, let's do Waze. Waze asks you, where do you want to go? So you tell Waze, I want to go to Manhattan. So Waze says, I'm in the mood of Borough Park. We're going to Borough Park. Unless you mamish have a good Waze, a lucky Waze. Or the car says, we're not going to Manhattan, we're going to Miami. Yeah? Unless you have an Alta Tranta, then the car might say, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here, Lo'ilam Vod. That may happen. But if it's a functional car, you tell the car, I have to go. The car dinkt. The car says yes, no. Why? The identity of the car is, it's just here as a vehicle. Now then they didn't have a car, they had a horse. Horse riding is a very, very, it's a very profound experience. Why? The horse takes you to places you could never go. And yet, if you have a relationship with your horse, the entire identity of the great horse is to take you where you want to go. It's going to take you to a place where you can't go. You can't run like the horse, and you don't have the strength of the horse. But the identity of the horse is the horse. Again, it depends on the mood of the horse, depends if you know how to deal with your horse. But the horse, and certainly the wagon, which is a daimim, its entire identity is, I want to be a vehicle for you. So he says that's what tefillah is. Tefillah means that the person realizes not only that he's one, his entire identity essentially is, like he said in the beginning of the Maimon, the neshama is a chelik elekami mal. So therefore, I am your vehicle in this world. I am an expression of you in this world. It's not two separate things. It's like you and the horse become completely one. This is a merkava. It's not, you don't start fighting with your horse. Your horse says, we're going here. No, we're going here. We're going there. It's like one. You know, the great horseback riders, their relationship with the horse was legendary. You know, they had this deep, deep kinship with their horse because the horse identified its entire life as a vehicle for this person, to take the person to places where he can go. In a way, that's what the person is telling Hashem. I know that this world is a messy place. I'm going to be the one. I'm the one. So it's almost a very deep idea that the neshama is part of God. And God, so to speak, separates Kivayachal, a piece of himself, and he sends that piece of himself into a very dark place. And he empowers it to go to places where Hashem himself is not going to be revealed, because he trusts that the person will be able to transform that place. So tefillah, the person redefines himself as a merkava. What's a merkava? A complete channel, a complete chariot, a complete vehicle, which represents how much dveikus there is. There's complete oneness. There's no real conflict between us. It's not like there's two agendas. In my deepest core, I am the Ein Sof. My entire identity is a channel for the Ein Sof. That's the kavanas halev of tefillah. Now for this, you have to have a lot of serenity to be able to get through, all the emotional rubble and to go to that space. But that's the truest definition of man. And in that truest definition of man, there's always empowerment. There's no insecurity. When you come out from the state of a merkava, you're not an insecure person. Why? Because the Eibishter's affared. When you're your own fed, then you can get very insecure. Shluchai shel adam k'moisei, it's a whole different experience. If I'm a merkava to you, so then the world belongs to me, because I'm part of you. So if the world belongs to you, the world belongs to me. And it's not egotistical, it's very humble. This is where absolute empowerment and absolute humility converge into one. The more humility, the more empowerment. The more empowerment, the more humility. Because I'm a merkava. That's the kavanas halev he's describing of tefillah. V'limser nafshi u'ritzoyin Hashem yizbarich liyas loy rak rotzen echad v'leiv echad lavam shabashamayim shaloi lehiparid mi yichudei v'achdusa yizbarich. Not to separate from his oneness and his unity. Now these are important words. You'll have in a lot of Sfarim will say, don't become separated from the Ribono Shel Olam, from Hashem. Here he says, shaloi lehiparid mi yichudei v'achdusa yizbarich. He doesn't say loi lehiparid mi menu, me HaKadosh Baruch Hu, me Hashem. It's a very famous expression. Don't get separated from Hashem. He says, don't get separated from Hashem's unity. You know the difference? Why did he say, don't get separated? Don't get separated from his unity, from his oneness. It's a difference from one extreme to another extreme. And it's important to understand this, because this is a very common expression in Likkutei Torah. When you say don't get separated from Hashem, what does it sound like? What does it sound like?
That it's possible.
Number one, that it's possible, A. Number two, it's two separate things. God is here. God is Bashamayim Imal. Amal Ha'aretz V'Tachas. And you're saying, don't get separated. Don't get separated. First of all, you could get separated. Second of all, it's two things, and therefore I'm telling you not to get separated. But then you ask yourself, I want to be separated. I don't want to be codependent. What does your therapist tell you? You have your own needs, your own identity, you need boundaries. I can't live my whole life for somebody else. I lived my whole life for other people. Right? A lot of people experience this struggle. I lived my whole life for other people. Enough! And religion makes them crazy, because for them, religion is the ultimate living your life for somebody else. Whoever that somebody else is. Sometimes it's the community, sometimes it's the shviger, sometimes it's shalom bayis, sometimes it's nachas for the zayd and the alter zayd, all the way back to the Kedushas Levi and to Adam Arishan before the Chet. But here he's saying something else. Meaning, the state of reality is oneness. That oneness includes you. You're part of oneness. That's who you are. It's not God versus me. You know what do they have? Roe versus Wade, right? God versus me. The question is who's going to win. So tefillah is kill yourself not to be separated from him. So, the state of reality is oneness. There's no two separate things. Ein Sof is one. You're part of that oneness. And therefore you also can't really be separated. If everything is one, you can't be separated. You could think you're separated. You can experience yourself as separation. That's why he puts in those words, it's me yichudei v'achdusei yisbarach. Now yichudei v'achdusei are not the same thing, you know that, right? What's the difference of yichudei and achdusei? Yichudei is yachid. Achdusei is echad. What's the difference of yachid and echad? Yachid, when you say yachid, what does a ben yachid mean? What does a ben yachid mean? The only one. What's ben echad? Yoim echad, yoim sheni. Number one. Yachid is only one. Echad is number one. Yichudei v'achdusei is two states of consciousness. Yichudei is the way the breath is in the mouth before it came out. There's only one. Achdusei is after the breath came out. There's already a whole world. Here you have to understand Hashem echad. Even in the state of fragmentation, there's still oneness. There's the state of yichud, there's the state of echad. Yichud is, there's a singular reality. There's no room for separation. You can't say, oh, you have a few kids. Who's going to get the Yerusha? Ben Yachid. There's no few kids. Yeah? When you have Baruch Hashem 13 children, the question is, what's going to happen after? What type of machlokes? Who's going to be this? Who's going to be that? So now you have to create echad, achdus. You have to create achdus because there's fragmentation. That's yichudei v'achdusei. It's two states of consciousness, but at least achdusei. So loyli parid machdusei means you can't get separated. It means you're not separated. It means it's not two separate things. So the consciousness of davening is that he doesn't want to separate from the state of oneness in which he is or she is essentially part of the Ein Sof. That's the truest definition of self, and that's all about machshava. That's all about kavanas halev. It's all an internal state of consciousness, because physically by tefillah, he's still in this world. After tefillah, he's going to work, or whatever he's doing after tefillah. But it's an inner kavana of how you see yourself. And how you see yourself, that's how you define what your reality is.
Very nice.
4 lines from the top. Chavav, first column, yeah? So, he's describing the Yiddishkeit operates in 3 trends. Torah, Avodah, Gvulas Chsadim. Gvulas Chsadim is Torah, Avodah is Tefillah, Torah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah. And they correspond to the 3 concepts of Barasiv, Yitzartiv, Asisiv, Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa. Tefillah is associated with Machshava, Kavanas Halev, Ratzon Halev, Reusa Deliba, like Karbonas. It's all about the person's kavanah not to be separated from his unity, not to be detached from his unity. Yeah. So he says, "Shaloyli parid mi yichudei v'achdusei yisbarach ayidei sur meirav asei toiv," and that's really the concept of sur meirav asei toiv. All of sur meirav asei toiv is really not to be separated from his unity. That's the whole definition. So when you say sur meira, stay away from negativity. Asay tov, do good, which basically includes all of the Torah and mitzvahs. What is the essence behind it? That you don't want to be detached from this true state of oneness. A mitzvah, in other words, it's not this is weiter chiddush. I mentioned that yichudei v'achdusei. He doesn't say don't be separated. Don't be separated from the unity. In other words, you're not dealing with 2 separate things, and you're not even dealing with a possibility of real separation. So now he adds weiter. It's not like, why do you do the mitzvah? Azah, you do it. Why don't you do the Aveda? You don't do it. The word Aveda doesn't really mean sin. The word Aveda is like in Masechta Shabbos, you have Maiver Dalad Amas B'Reshus Rabbim, right? Havara. What does it mean? To pass. To pass the ball. What are you passing? What's the Aveda? What are you passing? You're taking yourself out. You're taking yourself out from your unity with infinity. That's what an Aveda is. That's what an Aveda is. Huh? From the word lahaver, like maver, right? Maver. You pass a ball from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, or Maiver Dalad Amas B'Reshus HaRabim. Aveda, you go out. What do you go out? You go out of a state of oneness. Separateness. Oneness from yourself, because you're part of that oneness. A mitzvah is an opportunity to align yourself with that oneness. All mitzvahs are essentially to live that oneness, to breathe that oneness, to experience that oneness. So when the Torah speaks about it, it says, if you do the mitzvahs, you'll be blessed. If you don't do the mitzvahs, you'll do the averis, you'll be cursed. Right? So very often, the way we understand it is, God has a cotton candy in one hand, an electric sword in another hand. If you do what I want, I'll throw cotton candy on you. If you don't do what I want, I'll throw a grenade. And remember, I'm stronger. I'm stronger. I know you go to the gym. I know you're a muscular fellow. I know you know martial arts. But I'm bigger and stronger. I'm going to win. So that's a very, very primitive representation of Judaism. It's a very primitive representation. And it's very hard to be in love, to have a real relationship with it. At the end of the day, it's a very the definition of God, the definition of mitzvahs, definition of Torah. So just these words, Loili parid me'achdusis b'chadei sur me'rava say Tov is teaching something a little different. Not different, but deeper. And that is, it would be like telling somebody, you have this and this blood type. You have this and this type of body. If you're going to eat these foods, it's going to be negative for you. Why is it be negative for you? Not because I'm trying to punish you. But why? Because simply it's a betrayal of your system. A person is going to eat cotton for breakfast and cotton for lunch. Cotton is a wonderful thing, but not to eat. You're going to vomit. And if you're going to eat foods that are alien to your system, they betray your blood type, your physical chemistry, the makeup of your body. You're going to feel sick, you're going to feel depressed, you're going to feel heavy, like everybody knows with different foods.
Human eats grass.
Yeah. A cow not only could live on grass, a cow thrives on grass. The horse finishes its journey and you give it the grass and it dances. It's Purim and Simchas Torah for the horse. And the sheep and the goat, now you'll give the person the same diet, the same menu. It's not going to work. He's going to throw up. Why? The reason is it's a different makeup of a body. So is that called a punishment? It's basically, when the Torah says, the mitzvah, you'll get this. The Aveda, you'll get this. This, through the mitzvah, you're becoming aligned with your reality, which is oneness with Ein Sof. Through the Aveda, you're detaching yourself from your own reality. Whenever you detach yourself from your own reality, whenever you betray your own reality, ultimately you're fighting your own inner system. If you're fighting your own inner system, so then there's consequences to that emotionally, physically, certainly spiritually. And sometimes you don't see it physically, but spiritually there is a sensitivity of the soul. So therefore, he says, by davening, it's all about the kavanas halev, the mindful state that a person goes into that place of oneness, of dveikus, of intimacy with Ein Sof, and therefore he said defines himself as a merkava, as a vehicle, as a channel for that oneness without separateness. What does that mean? That he doesn't want to separate from the unity. How is it going to express itself during the day? In Sur Meirav Aseh Tov. Sur Meirav Aseh Tov are the cautious components a person has to do in order to be able to maintain oneness with one. The Hainu Kadaskafia Sitra Acharei Azayoir Alav Hashem Azayoir Alav Eir Hashem Al Nafsha. It's beautiful words. When you subdue the other side in you, you can experience the light of God on your soul. So it's not about breaking as much as it is about inviting and an opportunity to be able to experience Eir Hashem Al Nafsha. Again, to use the physical metaphor, your nutritionist will tell you, you can eat what you want. But don't expect that your body will be functioning even 50% of its capabilities because you're betraying it. You're giving it what it does not need. You're giving it poisonous elements. You're giving it poisonous elements, it's going to become frustrated. It's going to become paralyzed. It's going to become weak. That's what it is. So you'll say, but I want it. So that's the choice a person has to make between instinct and inner value. But kadaskafia sitra acharei, when you subdue in yourself the sitra acharei, then it's an opportunity to be able to experience Eir Hashem Al Nafsha, the light of Hashem on a person's soul. While Dover says,
this is how we can understand now. When you want to explain Yiddishkeit is when you grow up as a kid, how do you explain this concept to kids?
I think that children understand this much better than adults. I think children are much more in tune with these things than adults. Adults, it's a problem. They don't even believe me when I say.
You grew up differently.
Yeah, it's ingrained. They
You grew up,
don't
and
believe
it's a
me.
candy,
Yeah. It's a candy, right? But I think children are very, very sensitive to this. They get it right away. Children understand infinity. They understand Ein Sof. We think children don't understand. Children are brilliant. You think they break into your computer and iPhone because they're not brilliant? Even little children, they're typhus things that we don't think they grasp. And we can convey to children this. We could speak to children about infinity, Ein Sof. We could speak to children about the fact that everything is one, for real, that they're part of the oneness, and we have an opportunity to always be connected to that oneness, or to betray ourselves and detach ourselves of that oneness. I think children are extremely sensitive to this, and they get it immediately. We create, this is part of it, we already believe that our children are not interested. So we say, we'll give you potato chips. And what's the reward? The reward is usually poisonous foods. It's another interesting thing. When you're growing up, you're trying to go out of these foods. So what do we do for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds? You do it, we're going to give you, what's the schar? The schar is we're going to stuff your body with MSG.
Well, what should I give? Broccoli?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you don't want broccoli, they'll sign barley kernels.
Nuts. No, you toast
Healthy
up broccoli
food.
in the oven and put a little soy sauce on it. It's delicious.
See?
You have to know how to do it. 100%. Come to my house, I'll feed you.
Not me, my kids.
You come first.
Yeah.
You're harder to break.
Okay, I'm not here to change the whole system, but it's a very important idea. We assume, like the Christians, we assume people are guilty, original sin. Yeah, we assume you're guilty. How am I going to get you to do something good? Black and whites, cotton candy, Slurpees. It's the other way around. Really, if you can, don't assume separateness. Assume oneness. Assume that there's unity. A person wants to be one with one. The child wants to be one. Yes, we all have Yetzaharas. So you have incentives, you have prizes. But that's not the essence of it.
But when we raise that the other generation sin, and that we have to correct that head.
I don't know how you were raised. You'll have to tell me how you were raised. Okay, Adam Arishan had a sin, and we have to fix the sin. But the point is to fix and align the reality with your true reality. The sin is not your true reality.
But basically, you came into the world as a loser already because of.
That's a horrible mistake in Chilul.
That's how we were.
So that's a mistake. That's a mistake. How much we're not guilty till proven innocent. It's innocent even after proven guilty. It's innocent even after proven guilty. There's always a wholesomeness there, but it's a mistake that a person comes in and they have to prove themselves. We look at a person, essentially you're bad, you're evil, you're a machriv, you want to destroy everything, and if you prove yourself to be a saint, we'll accept you as such. It's a mistake. I once saw a story that there was a teacher who came into there was a classroom in a particular public school in New York. And there was one class, every teacher quit, like after a few weeks. It was just known, the class of, I don't know the right name for them, but nobody can have atzlacha with them. It was known, one survived a week, one survived 3 weeks, one survived this.
Purgatory.
What? Yeah. At some point, everybody quit. So they always had to get new teachers. Anyway, it was 1 year, so a teacher came in, and the principal walks a few days after and takes a look. Sees it's quiet in the classroom. The class was doing amazingly well. Amazingly well. It was incredible. And they figured out a very interesting thing. Basically, these were kids quite with a low IQ. with a lot of issues, learning issues and challenges, etc., whatever, all the issues. Every teacher would come into the principal would give a list, and had also, they did all these evaluations on the kids, so at the name of every kid, they had a number, and the number demonstrated, in terms of IQ and other things, where the child was holding. They asked this teacher, when you got this list, what did you see the numbers? She said she thought the numbers were the booths. Everyone had a locker. That was the number. Okay. That was one number. Then there was, I'm sorry, fakert. They had the numbers, and it was very, very high numbers. So she assumed. It had to do with lockers. She assumed it was IQ. So she went into the class, and she looked at them differently. She had a major hatzlacha. That has a tremendous impact on people. People feel exactly what you're experiencing from them. When a child feels that you look at him or her as lowly, they will live up to that expectation. When they feel that you see them in a much higher light, they will live up to that expectation. A Rav once told me that parents came to him and said that their child is a ganav. He's 11 years old and he steals, he pickpockets, he steals, and the father was crying. Anyway, the mother left for a few minutes. She had to tend to her needs. So the Rav was sitting there with the father. So the father said, I didn't want to say it in front of my wife, but when this kid was 3 years old, I already predicted. I already said he's going to be a ganav and a gazlan and a terrorist and a mushchas. I saw it when he was 3 already. So the Rav tells him, so I don't understand why you're crying. Such nachas. He lived up to your expectations beautifully.
Proved you right.
Proved you right. So, in other words, what I see in the child is what he's going to see in himself. If I see in him a piece of guilt, he'll see it in himself. If I see in him a piece of Ein Sof, he'll be able to see it in himself. But this is not about words, this is about an internal experience. What you see in others is what they could see in themselves. You can't expect your child to see in himself something that his Rabbi, his father, his mother, his Zayda, his Baba, and God doesn't see in him. So that's why I think that children actually pick this up instantaneously through words and much more than words, through non-verbal communication, through verbal communication and non-verbal communication. B'chlal, you don't have to be afraid of telling your children the deepest truths. They know it anyway. You don't have to dumb down Ein Sof for children. You could dumb down on the iPhone for kids is good. You don't have to dumb down on infinity for kids. They get it, mamash. They'll look at you because they're not sure that you get it. The look that they give you is because they don't know if you know what you're talking about. But they know exactly what you're talking about. The way they internalize things is not like how adults internalize things. They take it in. They know exactly what you're talking about. And you'll hear it from them 7-8 years later, and you'll see they knew what they're talking about. Essentially, this all starts with Birchas HaShachar, meaning, what do we start saying? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam. What's pshat? All the brachas, yeah? You start off Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam hanoisem asech v'pekeiach yivne matir asurim. He says, before you talk about the concept of the bracha, first you talk about the very words. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam. Baruch atah Hashem. So how do we teach it? We're thanking Hashem. Blessed are you, God, our God, the King of the world. It is a little strange to keep, it's like a chorus. Baruch atah Hashem. If you're really talking to me, yeah? So you say, blessed are you, Rabbi Jacobson, for you do this. Blessed are you. Just say what you want to say. Say once, Baruch atah, again and again and again. It's like almost like a scratched CD. Baruch atah Hashem melech ha'olam. You know the guys who go to the Amud for Birchas HaShachar. What's happening? So it needs his boinenness. You have to understand what it means. He says as a ki anu mevakshin, we're asking for something. Sheyumshach b'chines havaya lahavas ha'olamus shelo yufsak chiyusam v'kiyumam v'lo yistalek l'mayla keteva ha'esh chas v'shalom. Hashem elokecha eish oichla. The natural tendency of fire is that it doesn't want to stay down. It goes back. You need a wick to hold it down. You need logs to hold it down. Hashem Elokecha Yeshaychlo. The Asara Mamoris, God creating the world, is lav urcha de malka l'shtay bilad adayt. It's a pasnasht. It's not befitting. It's like the king, as we learned, who has his gold and infinite gold and silver, and he's talking about and investing in energy and collecting the mud. Yeah. We look at all the worlds, but all of the worlds essentially, it doesn't express the divine. And because it doesn't capture the divine, so to invest divine energy in that is a chiddush. Teva ha'esh is listalik. So he says, you're asking. Baruch atah. Bracha is not thanks. Bracha comes from the word hamshacha. Brecha. Drawing down. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam v'li is b'chinas Elokeinu. He should be Elokeinu. What's that Elokeinu? Shani yiptelim elav b'chinas merkava elav is baruch at sheyikarei shmoi aleinu shu Elokeinu k'may shekasav Elokei Avram shal shem shu b'chinas merkava v'loi li is davar v'yesh b'nifrad b'fnei atzma. What we're asking is, it should be Hashem, should be Baruch, it should be Hamshacha of Hashem Lamata, to the point that you could say he's Elokeinu. Elokeinu is a chiddush. He's attributed to you. He's my father, he's my mother, my brother, my God. Really, he's your God, our God, Elokeinu. It's hard for us to grasp the chiddush and the haflah, but that's what he's trying to explain, the chiddush. To be able to say the word, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, should be Elokeinu. In other words, the person shouldn't be a yesh v'davar nifrid b'fnei atzmai. Rak melech ha'olam, pirush mashu, mahava mechaya olam es liyas yesh v'nifrid b'fnei atzmai, u'mepnei ha'yoyse melech shmai. The whole world seems separated, it's because he's a melech. Ve'ein melech beloy am. There's no melech without a nation. Am miloshin umamus. Umamus means coals that are extinguished, blackened coals, dulled coals, umamus. Dvarim zadim v'nifradim, shem yiladam harbe bonim, ein nikra shmai melech alayim, kama shekasav makam acher. Mashekin Yisrael nikroyim bonim lamakam, bra kara da'avua, shaharegel p'tela itzlarosh kama shekasav makam acher. There's a difference between a child and a nation. You can't be a melech over your own children. It doesn't work. You're not, a father can't be called a king. Yeah, you'll say he's the king in the house. But it's a shem hamushal. The real concept of melucha can't be with a child. Why? Because you're lechatchila one. Ein melech beloy am. Am means somebody who's completely separate. Am miloshin umumus. Gecholim, coals that are already dull. Their fire is already very dull. What's the idea? Ein melech beloy am. That the am is completely separate from the king. The only way he could be a king is if there's a nation that coronates him as a king. For Hashem to be a melech, he needs a world that experiences itself as separate. When you experience yourself as separate, then there could be a relationship of malchus. You can't have malchus if it's something that's part of you. It's impossible. That's not malchus. Malchus is always with something, a relationship with something that's distinct from you, that's separate, and it chooses to have a relationship with you. A child, you say, bra kara davua. It's like the foot and the head. The son is the foot, kara is the foot, the knee, the leg of the father. What's the relationship between a foot and a head? You don't call the head a king over the foot. It's one thing. It's not like there's a head and there's a foot, and the head rules over the foot. The foot and the head, it's all part of one entity, the central nervous system. It's one guf. It's one cohesive, integrated entity. So therefore, there's no separation between the two. Because there's no separation between the two, it's not malchus. So what's birchas hashachar? That the person wakes up in the morning and he says, Baruch atah Hashem, and the chiddush is that Hashem should be able to be attributed to Elokeinu. Sheyikarei shmoi aleinu, he's saying, that his name should be attributed to us like Elokei Avram. He's Avram's God. What does it mean he's Avram's God? What makes him Avram's God? Avram's God. That his definition becomes Kevayachol, that he belongs to Avram, Elokei Avram. Holding the age down. How does that happen? The person doesn't want to be separate. He says, "V'inei kol chiyus v'kiyum ha'olam v'savus me'ayin liyesh, tamid tolui b'mesh anachnu mamshichim aleinu elakusa yizbarach liyispteilu me'lav ki hanashamas heima pnimis ha'olamas." Since the nature of fire is to depart, the entire life and existence of the worlds. And the fact that they're created every moment from nothing to something depends on the fact that we bring down on ourselves, so to speak. We connect to his godliness to become one with him. The souls are the engine of the worlds, the pnimius of the olamus. The axis, so to speak, upon which all the worlds revolve is the neshama, the neshamas. The pnimius, what do we mean the pnimius? The ultimate raison d'etre, the ultimate objective. The core, the engine, what keeps all the worlds going. That the malach should speak milah dehadyoita, should speak about things that seem completely alien to the essence of the king. That the divine should become invested in creating all of the worlds which are completely not reflective of infinity. And therefore, you would think, Lav Urcha de Malka, as he said earlier, Lishtay b'milah dehadyoita. What does that depend on? The Melech HaOlam depends on the Elokeinu. The Neshamas are the pnimius of the Olamas. They're at the core of all the worlds. It's like the axis upon which everything revolves. That's what a soul, the soul is the interlacing link between heaven and earth. It's the eye of the storm. It's in the middle of everything. It's in the core of all the universes. Like that's where everything revolves around it. You may see a huge ball, but there's the axis upon which everything is happening. That's where everything is becoming connected. That's where everything is becoming aligned. That's where the whole world is finding its purpose in the consciousness of the soul. K'maimir Azal, the Gemara says, "Kashem sheyev shaloylam beloy ruchus, kach yev shaloylam beloy Yisrael." Just as you can't have the world without ruchos, without the winds, you can't have the world without Yisrael. She Yisrael im kiyum u'maimet kol ha'olamus. Neshamas Yisrael is the kiyum, it's the maimet that holds up all the worlds. U'kamashal chaye haguf shetloyim b'pnimis nefesh achiyunas. You look at a body, you see a body, you don't see anything else. But what happens if you snuff out the soul from the body? Everything is there, but it's a lifeless corpse. The chaye haguf depends on the pnimius nefesh chayunis, on the biological soul. Shem yesh ezem me'ura b'nafshei achiyunis, gam kol gufei nepach l'chayla. And what happens if something happens in the soul? The whole body becomes sick. There's a big functioning body. The answer is the nefesh is so powerful. One tenuah, a chayli, one thing happens to the nefesh achiyunis, and the whole guf becomes a chayla. You sometimes have it in a person, something happens in a person. Not in the body even, not in the physical. Something changes in the emotion of a person. And the whole person becomes sick. All of life becomes worthless. Why? Because you affected something in the pnimius. You affected something in the pnimius. So there's a domino effect, everything shuts down. Everything just shuts down. Externally nothing happened. But in the pnimius something happened. It transforms the entire reality of the person. So the maimed haguf is what's happening in the nefesh, the inner consciousness.
Is Melech HaLokeinu should go contradictory? Because Melech is saying it has to do with the light only in Nifrad, and HaLokeinu is more...
That's the olam, that's what he says. The olam...
How do you say Avinu Malkeinu? You say, I bring that together.
No, because there's an element of the person that's also separate. It's how the neshama, it's a chelik alakamimal, but there's an element of the person. The nefesh abhamis and the guf, that's also separate. Of course, they're the union of malchus.
Why does he use the lotion of banim then? If there's a separate
Of what?
Banim, sons.
Right, that's what he's saying. So there's two elements. The neshama of the Jew is called banim l'malkim, like the foot and the head. It's one mitzias. It's not separate. And then there is the world, the aspect of the world that experiences itself completely as separate, and that's where there's malchus. Yeah. So there's Elokeinu, and there's Melech HaOlam. Baruch Atah Hashem, to be able to become Elokeinu, and then even furthermore Melech HaOlam. That's what he says. L'chein oimrim Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. Pirush. Baruch is not thanks. Baruch means blessed. But what does the word Baruch actually mean? In Mishnah you have Hamavrich es hagefen. You know what that is? You graft the vine. In other words, you take the branch and you communicate it, and you create a new plant. You have in Hebrew brecha, a pool. That's basically you from the well, or from the brook, from the stream, you bring in, you gather the water, you're mamshach the water. So he says, Baruch, sheyivurach v'yumshach, liya shem havaya lahavas kol hanimtzoyim. There should be havaya, the creation of everything, ayidei sheyi alonu b'bchinas aleikeinu. by being Elokeinu, by my complete unity with Hashem, v'az hayeh melech haolam. V'tiknu lo makem b'chol shachar, every morning, liyas k'mechadash b'tuvay b'chol yom tamid maseh bereishus u'mahava oisam liyesh me'ayin ha'muchlot. Because every day is a new decision on creation. Ach ein nimtza mashal kamoyu v'dugmasoi klal, lamata klal, laharis b'chush. However, here we don't have an example, a metaphor for this, to see how the world is constantly being recreated. Rak efes katzei, we have a little bit of a visual of it, and that is shebechol yoy meir mechoshech halayla u'kubriyasei shaloylam bereishach hashoicha v'hada nahoyra v'areu k'mayesh me'ayim. He says, when you look at the transition from night to day, you see something, a visual of that experience. It's like a newness. He says, every single day, just like when the creation happened, first was darkness, then was light, the Gemara says. So he says, every night, you're looking at darkness, and then suddenly, dawn breaks, sun rises. You have something of the experience of Ischachos. It's like Yesh Me'ayin. It's not mamish, you see Yesh Me'ayin. I mean, the sun is rising again and again and again. But the point is, it's that experience, that feeling of an absolute transition from one reality, completely a new reality. Suddenly, wow, a new day, a new energy. It's a feeling. Every day a person wakes up, it's a new energy. It's a nayatog. So he says the truth is that it's taka, mechadish b'chol yoy ma'aseh bereishus. It's a completely new reality. Everything is recreated. We always live with the past. It's very hard for us to experience a new day. Every day is a continuation of last day. And we get stuck there, what happened yesterday. But the person who's in tune with divine energy, every day is completely a new experience. A new life, a new relationship, a new experience. This is what's called a spiritual life. A spiritual life means that every day you're a new person. You're not the person who was there before, and your approach every day is with an absolute freshness. Because you're not living with toxicity and pressure and burdens and calculations of what happened last night and what happened yesterday. You show up to life as though you never saw it before.
Basically every minute of the day.
Every minute of the day, yeah. Every minute.
You're living in the now.
You show up to life as though it never happened before. I would show up here, I never saw anybody. Shalom aleichem, aleichem shalom. You show up to your wife, it's the first date. It's the first date. Yeah. You show up to your child, it's the first time I ever met this kid. Wow, he's cute. You show up. It's the first time you literally show up to life. It's just happening right now. Now, what does this even mean? What do you mean? I have bills to pay. I have issues to deal with. This happened last night, and we had an argument last night, and this happened last night, and I'm not happy about this last night, and that. We got that. We know. That's why we go. We're busy continuing the same play. You know, it's just a transcript playing itself out. But then the emes is that the whole concept of night and day, why did Hashem make it this way? This whole galgal, you know, we're learning in Rosh Hashanah, what's the point? It's fascinating how it works. The point is to be able to give us a visual of recreation every day. So what we could feel is we see the darkness, the light, the darkness, the light. That's really the way Chassidus explains why we have to sleep for so many hours. It's one of the strange phenomena of creation. Adam la'amal yulad. We weren't created to sleep. We were created to work, to produce. So why did Hashem create a system that a person has to sleep 8 hours? Yashanti az yanuachli. 7 hours, 6 hours. There are those who sleep less, but you need sleep. Those who are mahadeh, 12 hours, 18 hours in yeshiva, whatever it is. So Shabbos is coming. Some people do 24 hours. I said last night that the definition of consciousness is the annoying time between naps, right? But why the need? Why the need for this? Why the need? What's the need for it? So you said biologically, that's what you need. I understand biologically, but what's the spiritual reason that the biology was created that way? And one of the answers is in order to give the person the gift of his chashos, of renewal. Imagine God would make that we don't need sleep. Imagine 24 hours, right? Workaholics would love it. 24 hours, you don't need sleep. But what would life look like?
Series treadmill.
It would be one endless, continuous series. That's what life would look like. He wanted it should be able to be the concept of Sanayatag. It's a new day. Schachos. To be able to say, I'm showing up new today. So therefore, the first thing you do is Birchas HaShachar. Birchas HaShachar. So let's discuss creation. Creation is unnatural. Why is it unnatural? Lav urcha de malka l'shtoyi b'milen ded yoyte. It's a pasnish. Modnazan. Rakia. It's not elikus. It's elikus, but doesn't express the truth of elikus. So you need to hold down the fire. That's the chiddush of Elokeinu. So Baruch Atar should be Baruch and Nimshich, that the person creates the wick and the wood by Elokeinu, by telling God, I'll be in a relationship with you. Says for that it's worth it. I'll be in a relationship with you. Says, for this it's worth it. For this I'll do stupid things. I'll make clown tricks. You want clown tricks? I'll make clown tricks. Look, this is his circus. Okay, he makes better clown tricks than I do, than the Ringling brothers. But it's clown tricks. What do I mean clown tricks? It's miladed yoita. Yeah? But what do you do when your child, you want to entertain your kid? You go like this, right? So that's what God does. He goes like this. It's called creating the world. That's basically what it is. It's like this. The kids get excited. Why? I want to spend time with you. I want to spend time with you. But that's the chiddush of Elokeinu. Elokeinu means, it's not just, if I call you, I say, you're my wife, you're my husband. It works both ways. That the person feels, yeah, I'm yours, you're mine, and you're ready to be defined that way. Hashem, it's not only Elokei Avram. Avram decided he's his God. God decided that he's Avram's God. I belong to you. That's the greatest excitement about Yiddishkeit. That God, so to speak, in the morning, he's like, wow, you really want to spend time with me? Okay, I'll do all my clown tricks. I'm here. What do you need? You need oxygen, you need sunlight, you need botany, and the ganze Welt geht sich. That's Elokeinu. He looks and he says, sees the whole world is separate. So he continue, Melech ha'olam. He wants it to be Malchus. Malchus is a relationship. A relationship is only with somebody who's separate. So there's the element of separateness. Now you get into the details of the clown tricks. That's already the details. But the Nekudah is the Baruch Atah Shem Elokeinu Melech Haolam.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.